Hi there, Will here, and today, a bit of a blast from the past.
Set it off. Yo, first let me say that this has been, the first 10 minutes has been beautiful out here. This is nothing like it. When you can pick Jay Dilla and Dank from Frank and Dank up, and you have something rolled up, anything, it's fine with me.
You see, I'm a professional photographic assistant, and as a result of that, I frequently end up in locations where it's very nice to make photographs, but the photographs that I end up making can't be used until the images that the photographer makes actually end up being released. And frequently, it takes a very long time for that to happen. This particular adventure was just over a year ago, I think, with my friend Kent, and we went to the Mountain Kingdom of Lesotho, which is a small country inside South Africa, and it's probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, to be honest. The scenery just getting to Lesotho from Bloemfontein is already spectacular in its own right. The high veld and huge open fields that end up sort of progressing into these slight mountains and interesting rock formations, amplified by the fact that there's these cosmos flowers growing everywhere, which I thought were a European thing. I'd never actually seen them in South Africa before, but as it turns out, as one gets further into the high veld and closer to Lesotho, there start to be endless swaths of cosmos flowers, which are probably the most beautiful fields of flowers I've ever seen, and there's going to be a decent amount of them in varying situations throughout this video. Once we got to Lesotho, the scenery became truly flabbergasting, and this is some of the journey from Maseru to Semonkong.
With me. Y'all are phenomenal. It's fine with me. Y'all are phenomenal. Yo, we're gonna set it off. Yo, first let me me say that this has been, the first 10 minutes has been beautiful, beautiful out here. This is nothing like it. When you can pick Jay Dilla and Dank from Frank and Dank up, and you have something rolled up, anything, it is fine with me. I love you guys.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say for myself that is hands down the best bee photograph I've ever made. It's a recurring theme in my work at this point. I try to make photographs of bees, and that one in particular is probably about as close as I'll ever get to the perfect bee photograph. It's dead on focus, the flowers are amazing, there's a caterpillar hanging out with it, there's pollen on the leaves of the flower it's sitting on, and the surrounding landscape is pretty much unparalleled already. And thus, I was already on quite a high at that point in our drive towards Semonkong, but then something far grander and more spectacular occurred. That landscape is the one I was referring to when I was talking about not being sure if I'd ever made a landscape that nice and thinking that it was probably the best one I'd ever made. And I still do, to be honest. The scene is just, it's out of this world, like far beyond out of this world, to be honest. I feel like I'm looking into a fairy tale when I look at that picture. And that's what it felt like to be there as well, which is why I'm quite chuffed that I managed to, at least for myself, capture that feeling in the photograph. I mean, the little flowing river and these crazy mountains in the background and this red light, which is a bit of a fixture in Lesotho, as it turns out, because there's so many wood fires burning all around because a lot of places don't have electricity and they still cook on wood fires and use wood fires for heat and light and warmth and so on. The sky there is just constantly full of smoke, and you can constantly smell this lovely wood smoke smell. And what that does to the light is it creates a haze, but it creates a red haze because of the nature of smoke, and thus the landscapes all have a bit of a red tinge to them, which is perfectly in line with my aesthetic sensibilities because I'm a fan of the color red in a photograph. The plan for the next day was to visit Maletsanyune Falls, which Kent had promised me was going to, at the very least, parallel the experience that we'd had earlier with that spectacular landscape. I was dubious, but as it turns out, it was in fact something else. I feel like I really need to mention that the Toyota Land Cruiser that we were in broke down, and that is probably one of the strangest things I've ever had happen to me, because my whole life it's been Toyota Land Cruiser, the only car you can trust never to ever break down. And then as we were cruising around in the mountains of Lesotho, this thing broke down on the side of the road, and I was just like so taken aback by it, I didn't know what to do. But it ended up being a fortunate thing, because we wandered around this tiny village that we wouldn't really probably have stopped at otherwise, and got some really good photos as a result. And the waterfalls were, of course, pretty spectacular. To be honest, that dreamy scene still wins for me though, because you expect the waterfalls to be spectacular, and they sort of hit you in the face with how spectacular they are, whereas that dreamy scene is more of a sort of low-key spectacular scene. I mean, it hits you in the face still, it's amazing, but it's not as outwardly amazing as one might anticipate. Anyway, after our slightly disaster-struck trip to the falls, we made our way back to the lodge, packed our things, and hit the road back to Maseru again.
Prayed up, man.
I'm going to cut things off quite abruptly there, I suppose, with that picture of the tires, because whilst there are many other photographs that I made on that trip, including all the photographs I made as part of the actual reason that we were there, I'm going to save them for another video, because the difference in vibe between the reason that we were there and the scenery that I've just shown you is so immense that I don't think it would be fitting to combine them in one video. So at some other point I'll show you exactly why we ended up in Lesotho, and it's probably one of the more bizarre contexts for a film photography video you'll see on YouTube, but I'll save that for some point in the future. With regards to the photographs I made, obviously that dreamy landscape is probably my favorite. It's probably my favorite photograph I've made, potentially of all time. Second only to that bee photograph, which is the best bee photograph I've made. And when I say best, it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm a great photographer and I'm making these great photographs. I just mean in terms of my personal view on the photographs that I've made, you know? Like, for me, I'm happy with them. Anyway, let me know which photographs you enjoyed, and I hope you enjoyed the journey as a whole. Keep an eye out for the second part. I'm not going to call it part 2. It'll stand out though, whatever it ends up being called. Trust me. And an immense thank you, as always, to the members of my Buy Me a Coffee, who stood by me in my illness and helped me through the darkest period I've ever experienced in my life. And a big thank you to you for watching. I'll see you again soon.